From Dustin Poirier favoring him over Michael Chandler, to Ben Askren doubting whether his upcoming match will even happen, here's UFC fighters' honest opinion on Conor McGregor returning. 2 years after taking a dramatic break from the UFC due to injuring his tibia and fibula, the Irishman will make his highly anticipated comeback against Chandler. And the response has been massive. On February 4, 2003, the president of the UFC, Dana White, announced the long-awaited return of the Notorious, revealing that he'd reprise his role on The Ultimate Fighter and then step into the octagon with his coaching partner, Iron Chandler, in a 170-pound showdown later this year. Now, Twitter, unsurprisingly, reacted wildly. The pros just can't get enough of the fact that the two will be coaching together and then be squaring up against each other immediately after, including MMA artist Derek Brunson, who commented how cold-blooded this stunt was. It was bound to bring some life back to Tough. Dustin Poirier also reacted to the news, tweeting, "Tough, all my children edition," referring to the fact that he's beaten both McGregor and Chandler before, and he prefers the former over the latter. Since he knows a couple of things about the two, he predicted who'd win the match based on his previous experience. The former lightweight champion holds a combined 3-0 record over the two men set to headline the upcoming season of Tough. He defeated McGregor consecutively in back-to-back fights in 2021, first knocking him out with a second-round assault at UFC 257, and then via first-round stoppage after McGregor suffered a broken leg at UFC 264. He then went on to topple Chandler as well by a third-round submission at UFC 281. So if there's anyone who can pick an unbiased winner for the upcoming match, it's the Diamond. So when he was asked to pick a winner between the two, Poirier had a pretty good idea of who he was going to be leaning towards. He said that if Conor still has the same timing and rhythm as before, and if his skills haven't declined due to his injury and the long layoff, he'll be able to defeat Chandler. And despite the fact that he's aged over the past 2 years without any major practice to keep up, it's all good as long as his technique remains the same. In fact, he's got so much faith in McGregor's abilities that he believes the fight would be over in 2 rounds. Retired MMA artist Michael Bisping also shared his opinion on the fight, and he too sided with Conor on this one. The Englishman has sure had his ups and downs with the 34-year-old, but he's placed his bets on McGregor to beat Chandler, and even made up scenarios on how it could happen. He said that the Notorious had the potential to light him up if he knocks him out with an impeccable left hand. The King would be back on top and the world would lose its mind. But Bisping still has his doubts on the possibility of that taking place. Since he's been MIA for so long, several fighters doubt whether he's still the same Notorious that left the ring. His power, his timing, they're all aspects which gave him as much clout as he has today. Does he still have it in him? No one knows for sure, so it'll all come down to the match to see whether Conor is still as skilled as he was before. The former middleweight champion also stated that the UFC would hand a title shot to the Irishman if he pulled off the win. That's a given. But if he didn't, it could very well be the last time we see him in the octagon. Either way, he's the biggest star in the sport, despite what anyone else might think. The UFC fighter is a former division champion, and regardless of what his haters might say, people would pay a great deal of money to see him fight. Beneil Dariush, the number 4 ranked lightweight, also agrees with Bisping. In an interview with Submission Radio, he revealed that Chandler is the easiest opponent for Conor right now, and it wouldn't take much of his energy to beat him. He further clarified that he didn't mean the Irishman couldn't win against other guys, but with Mike, he doesn't use his skill set properly and has zero energy management and striking defense. For the time being, he just wants to get out here and fight. So defeating him should be easy for McGregor, and once he's proved he's back in the game, he can go ahead and compete in all the heavy lifting fights again. But not everyone is in favor of McGregor's comeback, because Islam Makhachev is under the impression that the fight won't even take place. They've always been in each other's bad books, primarily because of McGregor's dislike for his childhood friend Khabib Nurmagomedov. And Makhachev has just added fuel to the fire as he went as low as to question McGregor's very merits for the upcoming match. He said that he doesn't even believe the Irish fighter wants to take part in the fight. McGregor has practically been wasting away as he drank and smoked throughout his 2-year absence. The guy just can't fight anymore. And while The Ultimate Fighter, the reality television series, will make things interesting, it's only to push the lightweight champ back to the top since it's been so long since he last fought. The former Sambo competitor also mentioned that besides being unhealthy, Conor has also lost his fame. Everybody's already moved on to new fighters, and the former double champ's name has gotten lost somewhere in the crowd. And Islam didn't stop there. He also thinks the 34-year-old could be looking at his last fight. The fight is far from happening, but the Russian champion has already announced his prediction for McGregor's retirement. According to Makhachev, the fight could go both ways, but if Conor happens to be on the losing side of it, which he's no doubt rooting for, it could very well be his last fight. While speaking to reporters at UFC 284 Media Day, he said that the Irish champion would surely be signing his retirement papers if he loses. Sean O'Malley holds a similar opinion, despite the fact that he's a huge fan of the Notorious. Although he did side with him as the winner, the 28-year-old didn't hesitate to spill out his true feelings about Conor. He said that the former champ didn't seem very focused or serious about his comeback fight, despite the fact that he lost 2 of them before his hiatus. Now, while his skills are unmatched and he's built up an extraordinary reputation for himself in the UFC, a third loss may very well have drastic effects on his career. Truth be told, it may even limit his chances of fighting for the gold in the future. O'Malley added that McGregor wasn't taking his upcoming fight as serious as he should be. But could he still go out there and get the job done? Absolutely. And he's not the only one with that opinion. Despite the fight being announced, former UFC fighter Ben Askren is skeptical whether it will ever take place. After his consecutive loss against Poirier, McGregor withdrew himself from the USADA testing pool, but is expected to re-enroll in the program for the upcoming bout. Once he does, he's required to stay in the testing pool for 6 months before he'll be eligible to compete. But since the Notorious isn't currently enrolled in the USADA drug testing pool, this has left Askren doubting the Irishman's comeback fight. He tweeted, "McGregor should have picked an easier fight, and I'll actually believe he is gonna fight when he gets in the USADA pool." McGregor would be making his return after 2 years following his consecutive defeats to the former UFC lightweight champion, Poirier. And even though he's extremely popular and is one of the world's highest-paid athletes, he's kind of gotten lost against all the emerging fighters. If he wants to set his return in stone, his match against Chandler is his opportunity to make it big once again. Otherwise, there are plenty of other fighters who would completely overshadow him. McGregor's health and dedication are 2 of the biggest questions surrounding the fight. As a former 2-division champion, he's competed just 4 times since 2016, winning only once, and has remained out of action ever since he injured his leg in the trilogy match with Poirier. His inactivity has left people doubting whether he'll get back in shape in time for the match. And since the sport doesn't wait for no one, Conor's name will quickly disappear from the headlines if he loses the match. This is his one shot to wriggle his way back into the spotlight, or he can wave his career goodbye. So, from Ben Askren doubting whether his upcoming match will even happen, to Dustin Poirier favoring him over Michael Chandler, this was UFC Fighter's honest opinion on Conor McGregor returning.